Mills is, no, it's not.
Okay, today is Tuesday, June 9th, and we're ready to go with the public session. We just came out of executive session. We considered the purchase, exchange, lease of value of real property. Does anyone have any announcements?
I attended, I believe along with Selectmen Green, the Coolidge Corners Arts Festival this past Saturday, and I found it quite enjoyable. I've passed my compliments on to the organizers, thoroughly enjoyed myself, actually spent some money to support the artists, and think it was a great weather, great gathering, so.
I actually always love it, but I had a wedding this weekend, was out of town, but.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it also. Particularly like the setup of the food arrangements with the food trucks and area where people could sit and socialize and eat their lunches.
I know several of us also attended a meeting last night. I don't know if Selectman Waschinsky wants to tell us.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I'll call it a visioning session sponsored by the Economic Development Advisory Board, looking at, can we develop kind of a long-range vision for medium-sized commercial parcels to make the development process a little more predictable, which is one of the impediments to developing in Brookline. And until now, with our large parcels, we've kind of approached it on a parcel-by-parcel basis, where a developer would approach us, or we would approach a developer, and then work with the developer, and then modify the zoning to fit the project. And we've had some success with that approach, but we've kind of run out of large sites to entice folks to do these impact developments. The latest and probably the last for a while are 2 Brookline Place, the Red Cab, and the Cleveland Circle site, Cleveland Circle Cinema, which is mostly in Boston but partially in Brookline. So very interesting session.
Yeah, I think we should add that all of us on the board were pointing out to others who are maybe not enmeshed in the political world as we are, that most projects would require rezoning, and therefore is absolutely critical to have, neighborhood involvement, dialogue with the neighborhood before you try to move on anything like that.
And on that note, this is the first of, I think, several sessions or several conversations
Right.
about this. At least that's the sense I got walking out of the room last evening.
Yeah, I think there was a kind of a general desire to dig deeper and see what we can come up with. The last thing I'll talk about, well, maybe it's the last thing, is there was a very moving flag-raising ceremony in honor of Commander Melvin Letterman yesterday morning at town. Yesterday morning. Yesterday was Monday. Mr. Kleckner was there. Some others who knew Mr. Letterman, Mr. Letterman's brother was there. Very, very moving. And to hear the story, he lost his life in Vietnam. It was just a very moving ceremony.
Yeah, I think Bill McGordy is seeking he did not receive all the honors he was
Right.
due. That's my understanding.
Right.
And so Bill McGordy, who's such a diligent Veterans Affairs officer for Brookline, is going after so that he posthumously would get awarded everything that he was entitled to.
In coordination with our Congressman, Joe Kennedy, pursuing, he was awarded one medal, but it turns out that he deserved a higher, more, or earned a more prestigious medal, I think is the situation.
Right. Selectman Heller.
I just wanted to tell you about the JFK a contest. It was charming. The kids were charming, the essays were charming. I won't belabor it, but there was one child who had written an essay about his experiences having had cancer, being treated for cancer himself, and equating that with JFK's struggle with all his back surgeries and his Addison's disease. And it was really very poignant. The kid showed a lot of emotion during the ceremony, and he was an incredibly brave child. As I said to him after, I thought that he was a profile in courage for having to have the courage to raise this and talk about his own feelings and what happened to him when he was 5. So it was a lovely event, and I'd be happy to do it every year.
Okay, I think we're ready to move on. We don't have any public comment? Okay, so let's move on to the miscellaneous calendar. First is the approval of the minutes for May 19th. We had held
Yes,
them.
I have written out all my changes and given them to Kate.
Okay, and
I had previously submitted some.
as did I. And,
I have some changes too, which I have not given to Kate.
okay, so why don't you
You're on the
pass?
second set of minutes now.
No,
Well, I'll take the two sets of minutes together in a vote. So let's, if you have any, does anyone have any changes to the May 26th?
No.
I have a minor change. So I'll move acceptance of both the May 19th and May 26th minutes. All those in favor? Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. Moving on. Question of approving the board's summer meeting schedule, which has us meeting, the last, in quote, normal meeting would be on June 30th, in a few weeks. We would then be off July 7th, on July 14th, 2 weeks off until August 4th, 2 weeks off until August 25th, off September 1, and then back with our normal meeting schedule on September 8th. I'll just note that there were, this year, the schedule was tough to put together to have everybody attend every meeting, so.
Yeah, I will not be there for August 25th, and
Ooh,
as
I won't be there for August, so we're only going to have 3.
Ooh, you're in charge, Ben, at last.
Ben's in charge now.
Yeah.
There's going to be some changes.
I can't even promise you I'll call in, but I'll try.
I won't, I'll be on a cruise ship in the
Yeah,
Mediterranean,
okay.
so you ain't getting me.
I would also note that in September, we have 2 Jewish holidays to work around, and I haven't begun to tackle that one yet, but we will. Just so you know, mid-September, there are 2 dates we'll have to move
We
around.
may have some Wednesday meetings?
Yes, possibly.
Okay, or Monday meetings. Well, we'll see. Okay, so I'll move acceptance of the proposed summer meeting schedule. All those in favor, Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Okay, moving on. Question of approving and authorizing the chair to execute a letter of support, Senate Bill 735, an act relative to transgender anti-discrimination, or House Bill number 1577, an act relative to gender identity and non-discrimination. So the background here is we've been approached by Jessie Mermel in her capacity as the director of the Alliance for Business Leadership to support a bill that's before both the House and the Senate. I believe the versions before them are identical. Supporting.
And I think the head of our Diversity Commission is strongly urging us.
Right, and I was going to get there. And we've run this by the head of our human
So diversity, inclusion.
The diversity,
Inclusion
right.
Committee.
And also the director of our,
Diversity, inclusion, and human relations.
thank you, who are very supportive.
I just call them diversity.
Right.
Thank you.
DICR.
And the bill basically adds transgender and gender identity and non-discrimination to sex discrimination in state statutes. So, that's something I support.
Yeah, I'm strongly in favor, but do you want to comment on it? Because did you just, as our representative to the Diversity Commission, I don't know if there was discussion of it
This has
there.
not come up at the
Oh.
DICR meeting.
Okay.
But, I think we all support this. I would just add that there's a misuse of a word in the letter, exponential.
Well, this was a proposed letter, and I suspect there's going to be a little massaging of the language. One, it's authorizing me to sign it as chair, and the first sentence is, "As the proud mayors of 12 cities and towns." And last I heard, I wasn't the mayor.
This is the change he's suggesting.
Right, yeah.
Edited.
Yeah. So, so what I'm going to suggest is that I'll move approving and authorizing the chair to sign this letter, and with the understanding that the exact language is still going to be massaged and worked out. So I'll move that we authorize the chair to execute a letter of support for Senate Bill 735 or House Bill 1577, an act relative to gender identity and non-discrimination. So all those in favor, Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Moving on to item
So
D.
we were, because my daughter is studying in Ireland, so we were actively watching the recent vote in Ireland about equality in marriage. And I was thinking how Massachusetts led the way there, so no doubt on this issue as well, we will
Right.
set a trend.
So item D in miscellaneous calendar, question of accepting a gift in the amount of $500 from the Bay State Federal Savings Charitable Foundation in connection with the Poet Laureate Program.
Good evening. I'm Austin Faison, the Assistant Town Administrator. Under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53A, towns and municipalities and cities need to approve gifts through this for the dispersion through the town. So what this would be is a gift from the Bay State Federal Savings Charitable Foundation that would go towards the town's Poet Laureate program.
Well, I note this is Mr. Faison's first time speaking with us.
That is
So
correct.
welcome.
Thank you.
You came on board officially, what?
June 1st, so last Monday.
You should
Okay.
say he's the new deputy.
New assistant
Assistant,
administrator.
yeah. Sorry,
Melissa's the
The new Melissa, now, then Melissa is the new Sean.
Yeah.
And I'd like to just thank publicly the Bay State Federal Savings Charitable Foundation. This is very nice of them to do this. They've done this a number of times.
Several
yeah.
years, yeah. Yeah, I think this is great, and please convey to them, Mel, that our gratitude for this contribution.
Any other comments? So I'll move.
Who is our Poet Laureate?
We're changing one. There's a new one coming on board. I cannot tell you the name.
We voted
Ms.
it-
Stenberg was the most recent one, but...
Schreiber.
Schreiber.
Okay, so I'll move acceptance of the gift in the amount of $500 from the Bay State Federal Savings Charitable Foundation in connection with the Poet Laureate Program. All those in favor, Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Moving on to the question of accepting an incentive check from National Grid in the amount of $200 in connection with an energy efficiency evaluation study to be used for future energy efficient programs. Who's going to be someone from the building department?
They're probably
I
down
think
with the building commission this evening.
Charlie
so-
probably doesn't think $200 is enough to come here for, but
Doesn't
I
have
I think this is pretty straightforward.
we have had I will say Charlie Simmons, who is our Director of Public Buildings, has done a very good job getting us as many of these rebates as possible for energy efficient projects in our buildings, so I'm happy that he is so diligent and happy to accept the $200.
So I'll move acceptance of the acceptance check, the incentive check from National Grid in the amount of $200 in connection with an energy efficiency evaluation study to be used for future energy efficient programs. Selectmen, all those in favor? Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
One of these days I'll do it and
I'm
remember
going to name
everyone's
that
name.
for you.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. On to item F, question of approving extra work order number 1 in the amount of $69,000 for work to be completed by New England landscape architect in connection with the Daniel Warren Field Elliott Playground improvements. Mr. Ditto.
Good evening. This is a end of a project change order, and the value of $69,000 represents about 8% of the overall project, which is about $788,000. Some of the major items that contributed to this extra work were additional excavation and reuse of the material as a result of unsuitable material found. Also, there was ledge and stumps that weren't anticipated when the project was estimated. Also, there was some additional gravel that had to be placed under play surfaces that had to be extended to clear the safety zones for falling. The project entailed quite a bit, and there's quite a different feeling to it. There was new play equipment for ages 2 to 5 and 5 to 12 years. There was new fencing around the baseball field and backstop. There was extended paving around the water play area. There was improved drainage constructed. There was accessibility improvements at the entrances and around the perimeter of the playground. We're very happy with the outcome of this project, and if you have a chance, you might take a walk through. It's a completely different feel from what was there before.
So this is the end of the project, and this closes the project out?
It does,
Okay, and we're still within budget?
yes.
Selectman Daley?
I just had a quick question about the crushed stone you're talking about. I thought we were putting something softer on the areas where the kids were playing, so,
Yeah, that's underneath the material. It's
Oh,
soft. So it's the
okay.
base for the rubberized
okay.
surface.
All right, gotcha.
Any other comment, questions? Okay, so hearing none, I will move approval of the extra work order number 1 in the amount of $69,000 for work to be completed by New England landscape architect in connection with contract PW 14-7 Daniel J. Warren Field Elliott Playground improvements. All those in favor, Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Moving along. Question of awarding and executing contract for Fisher Avenue reconstruction project in the amount of $1,071,275.50 to Newport Construction of Nashua. Peter, Mr. Ditto.
Yes, on May 15th, we opened proposals for the reconstruction of Fisher Ave. We received 2 proposals, of which Newport Construction was the lowest. at $1,071,275.50. And Mario Susi was second, and he was about $400,000 over that low bid. The project involves complete reconstruction of Fisher Ave from Boylston Street to Clinton Road, and that includes reclamation of the the existing paved surface now. The two processes we use are mill and overlay, which is a process when the road's not in too bad a condition, and it allows you to do that operation. This one here, the road is so bad that we actually have to take the material, grind it all up, regrade it and compact it. So it's going to be a total reconstruction. There'll be selected curbs installed. Also, asphalt berms will be installed. Sidewalks will be replaced. And there'll be drainage done on the Boylston side of Fisher Ave. Newport construction is not new to the town. They actually did the roadway Harvard Street from School Street to Webster about 6 years ago. We had a good experience with them then, so I don't anticipate anything different now.
That was actually going to be one of my questions, because I noticed a pretty large difference between the high and the low bid. So, this, is that at all concerning?
It was a little bit surprising, but we looked at that. Our estimate was $1 million, so we were comfortable with that number.
Selectman Franco.
Can you remind me where the money for this project's coming from, Peter? I know that the MWRA did a fairly large project, I believe, on Fisher Avenue. Is this connected to that at all, or
No.
is this just regular?
Chapter 90.
Chapter 90 money?
This is town funds, actually.
From town.
So it's just town capital dollars?
I know former Selectman Goldstein was very anxious to have this project proceed.
So on that note, when are we expecting construction to commence?
I'll give, if you vote this tonight, he'll receive a notice to proceed, which will put him on the time clock 7 days from now. We'll ask him for a schedule. I would anticipate he'd probably be starting work anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay. Seeing no other questions or comments, I will move that we award and execute a contract to for the Fisher Avenue reconstruction project in the amount of $1,071,275.50 to Newport Construction Corp. of Nashua, New Hampshire. All those in favor, Selectman Daley.
Aye.
Selectman Franco.
Aye.
Selectman Heller.
Aye.
Selectman Green.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Moving on to H, question of approving the extra work order number 1 in the amount of $7,053.52 in connection with traffic signals and related work with Daigle Electric Construction Corp. Mr. Ditto.
Yes, Daigle has our annual contract for repair of traffic signals as a result of, one of the things is results of accidents. We write the contract for $40,000, and in this year, we have exceeded that $40,000. There were more accidents than we anticipated. We feel comfortable that the $7,000 will get us to the end of this fiscal year, so we ask them for that approval.
Mr. Franco.
If this is the result of traffic accidents, do we recoup these dollars at some point through insurance, or?
This was coming.
Yes, actually, this money's coming from the Accident Recovery Fund.
Good answer.
Any other questions, comments?
I'd like to ask a question. Did we lose any lights or any signals as a result of the harsh winter?
I'm not aware of any.
Okay, yes. No other questions. I'll move approval of extra work order number 1 in the amount of $7,053.52 in connection with the traffic signals and related work contract with Daigle Electrical Construction Corp. of Woburn. All those in favor, Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Now we're looking at a number of appropriation transfers within the Council on Aging budget. Ms. Dobek.
Good evening, Ruth Ann Dobek, Director of the Council on Aging. The harsh winter may not have brought it down any traffic lights, but it did impact our utilities budget. The senior center saw greater usage in both our electricity and natural gas. Fortunately, we do have some additional leftover money in our cleaning budget due to the fact that we didn't need to do as much heavy cleaning as in some of the other years or as budgeted. So the request is to transfer from the cleaning and into the natural gas and electricity account.
Okay, so the motion will be to transfer 1,000 from cleaning to natural gas, then 1188 from cleaning to electricity. Any questions, comments? It seems pretty straightforward. Therefore, I'll move approval of the following appropriation transfers within the Council on Aging budgets from the Building Cleaning Services account, $1,000, to natural gas, $1,000, from the Building Cleaning Services account, $1,188, to electricity, $1,188. All those in favor? Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Same person.
Okay, so now we're accepting a grant in the amount of $59,000 from the State Department of Transportation in connection with the Enhanced Mobility for Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities Grant Program. Ms. Dobek.
Thank you. This is something that we're quite proud of and feel that also that the town can additionally be proud of. This was a very competitive grant process, and we were awarded a grant of $59,000. This is federal money, so it is very similar to CDBG money, although we've received the award and the allocation starts in July 1st, we are dependent on the federal government's appropriation. So we're not exactly sure when we'll actually be able to see the money. But we did want to accept the gift and get started in our work because we have to submit the contract. A little background on this proposal. Years ago, my colleague and I in Newton had thought of a project to help seniors who have to either give up driving or have given up driving for a while and are self-isolated and not using some of the transportation that exists, of using a volunteer system in order to help seniors navigate both public transportation and apply for some of the RIDE or some of the other grant programs that are out there. We had applied for an incentive grant to the Executive Office of Elder Affairs, and at that time was turned down. It was an idea that both my colleague in Newton, Jane Colino, and myself still thought was worthwhile. And this is an example when Brookline adopted the age-friendly cities and town, one of our committees is on transportation. And as everybody in this room knows, transportation is a major need for our seniors, but it is very expensive and very hard to sustain. So the Age-Friendly Committee was looking at various ways of being creative with no additional resources available. And I told them about this idea that we had had years ago, and thanks to one of our very strong committee members, Shirley Sullivan, who really leaned onto this idea, and also our co-chair, Frank Caro, really pursued looking at other grant opportunities for this idea. And thanks to Shirley, we found out about this state grant that, again, is very competitive and usually goes for larger transportation, but we were encouraged to apply, and then a great deal of debt goes to Frank, who helped write the first draft and really put the ideas down on paper, and then we edited and worked together as a team. So this has been a whole team approach, and I know that Frank is here this evening as well and can speak to some of the details, but that's a little bit of the background. We're very excited about getting this started, and one of our hopes is that this is something that will be replicated across the Commonwealth. Additional note, Frank and I were honored by the state Massachusetts Councils on Aging for Innovator of the Year, in part because of these kinds of initiatives that we are able to do through our joint effort of the Brookline Council on Aging, Brookline Community Aging Network, and the age-friendly city and town that you've heard so much about in the last couple of years. So,
Mr. Carroll?
Yeah, hi, I'm Frank Carroll. I'm the co-chair of the Brookline Community Aging Network and the co-chair of the Age-Friendly City Initiative. And, you know, a couple of things to say about this. I think, you know, kind of both for the Brookline Community Aging Network and for the Age-Friendly City Initiative, until now, we've been operating entirely on a volunteer basis. And we've now kind of reached the point where we're seeing some things that we think need to be done that require a little bit more than what volunteers can do. And so we've been exploring getting some external funding. And so this is our first successful attempt to get external funds. And I have to say, it's from a source that if you kind of asked me a year ago whether we could get a grant from the Mass Department of Transportation, I have to say, well, I had no idea of that possibility. This is an instance in which one of the volunteers who has stepped forward through this initiative, Shirley Sullivan, and she was the one who had a very strong focus on transportation and kind of really pushed us to pursue grant funding, and she was the one who's willing to go to some kind of meetings that we don't have time to go for, and she learned about this opportunity and encouraged us to pursue it. One thing I would say about this, well, a couple of things I want to say about this initiative. First, a great deal of the emphasis is going to be on what I'm calling the psychosocial dimension. Kind of think about people who have lived their entire adult lives with taking the use of an automobile for granted. That's been their means of achieving independence in their lives, and kind of reach a point in their lives where it doesn't make sense for them to continue driving. For many of them, this is a traumatic transition, and people are really at risk of isolation at the point that they simply shut down on their activities and really confine their moving about to the bare essential. And there are transportation alternatives out there, but the transportation alternatives all have distinct limitations. And people really have to kind of restructure their lives to take advantage of them. Some people make that transition pretty readily, but for others it's a real challenge. And what we're hoping to do this is through this project, we're hoping to provide support to those who need it, so that they can continue to lead active lives and be fully engaged in the community. I should say one of the things we really worry about in taking on grant funding of this kind is, well, what happens when the grant funding runs out? And I've been involved with all too many kind of projects like that. And really, our vision of this is one that we want to build a model that will really rely largely on volunteers, with the thought that at a local level, there will be trained volunteers who will be available to work with people on an individual level and in small groups. And then our thought is that probably at the state level, through the Massachusetts Councils on Aging, there will be a professional who will kind of oversee this network, who will do the training and support for volunteers. There's currently a successful initiative on a state level that provides support, provides information to people about health care resources. So we think there's potential for doing this in this kind of mobility assistance area. So it's an interesting opportunity for us, and we're pleasantly surprised that we have this grant money, and we're looking forward to doing the project.
Yeah, this sounds like a great grant, but I thought I heard at the beginning that this is subject to the federal appropriations process? So,
Yes, it's federal money, so it's very similar to when we do a CDBG
right.
budgeting process.
So this would be out of next federal fiscal years?
No,
it's the current fiscal year, and apparently
Okay.
it's tied into the federal highway money. And apparently, the way Congress is operating now, it authorizes
Got it.
money on
Okay.
a month-to-month basis.
Right, right,
And the money for this has actually not yet been appropriated. Presumably will be appropriated by the end of the fiscal year.
Right.
So the federal fiscal year. So we don't know what the start date will be, and
Right.
we're proceeding on this on a very tentative basis, so that we'll get to do some preparatory work on
Right.
a volunteer basis, but we will not hire anyone until.
See, unfortunately, the U.S. Congress doesn't have quite the track record of our own town meeting and passing timely budgets.
What I would guess is that what we would, similar to CDBG, we are asking for acceptance tonight, and then we would come back when the contract is in hand. We are not spending any money until then. And then we would probably ask for, the contract to be okay.
Questions?
Well, no, just a comment. I want to say that the transportation issue is one we hear a great deal about in terms of the age-friendly community concept, and particularly from seniors who live in South Brookline, where they don't have that many options if they can't drive. So I think this is wonderful, and I applaud Frank and Shirley for going after it.
Questions, comments?
I just add that, without knowing a whole lot about this, I really thank you for all the work you've done. And it's not just seniors, it's people with disabilities. And, I work for the state, and a lot of people who contribute tremendously to the state and their own lives by having access to these transportation opportunities who are disabled. Now, unfortunately, you only see people with disabilities working in governmental settings. You don't see that in the private sector, but the fact that we are able to take advantage of their skills and the other things they have to offer to us means that public service is that much enhanced.
Okay, so I think we're ready to move acceptance of a grant in the amount of $59,000 from the State Department of Transportation in connection with the Enhanced Mobility for Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities Grant Program. All those in favor, Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Question, item K is postponed. We're now looking at alternate manager for Zaftigs. Any questions, comments? I'll note that the alternate managers, who are Chelsea Schuman and Matthew Otten, have have their paperwork in order. The police have done what they need to do and recommend approval. So I will move approval of the application of Zaftig's, DBA Zaftig's Eatery, holder of a wine and malt beverages license as a common victualler at 335 Harvard Street for the appointment of Chelsea Schuman and Matthew Otten as alternate managers. All those in favor, Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. And we have two temporary licenses, one at Pine Manor and the other at Lars Anderson Auto Museum. These are temporary, all kinds alcoholic beverage licenses for parties. The police also have reviewed it. The paperwork is in good shape. The police are recommending that we approve it. Any questions, comments? So I'll move them, two of them in omnibus fashion. I'll move that we grant the temporary all kinds alcoholic beverage license to Pine Manor College in connection with a wedding rehearsal dinner to be held on July 2nd from 6 to 9, 400 Heath Street. And I'll move the granting of a permit to serve alcoholic beverages on town property, non-sales, to Lars Anderson Auto Museum in connection with a 50th birthday party to be held on June 19th from 6 to 11 at 15 Newton Street. All those in favor, Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Now we're ready for our main calendar. First item is library personnel. Ms. Slyman, tell us what's going on.
Sarah Slyman, Library Director. Laptop here, I've never seen that before, is that new? So I have 3 authorizations to hire before you this evening. Just a brief explanation of the Supervisor of Collection Development and the Reference Supervisor positions. Chuck Flaherty had received permission from you all last year to create these positions in an interim fashion with the understanding that the new director would see how that was working, how the workflow was going with a new reconfiguration for heads of these departments. And so I've had a whole year now to oversee them and take a look at how it's working, and I think it's working very, very well. I worked with Sean and then now Melissa to get them, permanently in the budget for this year. And so the current holders' interim terms will expire on June 30th, and I'd like authorization to fill those positions permanently effective July 1st.
So these are not new recruits, so these are taking...
They're both union positions, so they'll be posted internally for 10 days, and we'll take a look at all of the candidates.
Gotcha.
I do anticipate the folks that are currently holding them
Will apply.
have let me know they're both planning on applying. Whether there will
Okay.
be additional applicants, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't anticipate it ever becoming a public posting, though, because I think we're going to have an excellent crop of internal candidates.
Any comments, questions?
Can you just say a word about the local library, or local history
Oh,
librarian?
yeah, I'm sorry. Are you going to take them all 3 together?
Yeah, yeah,
So sorry, I'm sorry, Mr. Franco. Yeah, the local history librarian is also not a new position. It has been vacated by Ann Clark, who has been operating as the interim reference head. So in anticipation of that position becoming available, we're hoping that we could fill her previous position.
Selectman Daley first.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so I just had a question, because on Memorial Day, I was chatting with the Reverend, I'm going to forget his name now, who spoke at Memorial Day.
Unitarian, I don't know. if you
Okay,
call it.
anyway, he is quite a diligent amateur historian, and he was concerned about some material from our old Brookline collection that he felt had gone missing at some point.
Oh, man.
And
Do you
so I'm,
specify what it was? It's a hot issue in libraries right now. I think.
Well, one item was a trunk, wasn't it?
a trunk,
A
yeah.
trunk with a lot of historical items in them. in it.
And he feels it's gone missing?
Yeah,
Remember
he's,
the details?
yeah, I can't remember exactly, but he said he'd used the material in there at some point, and then when he came back and asked, where's the trunk, people kept saying, oh, it got put downstairs or something like that, and then finally it was like, oh, well, we don't know where it is.
Well, I think perhaps maybe we should put the Reverend in
Yeah, okay, I will just,
contact with
I
Ms.
will tell
Lyon.
you, if you give a call to Bill McGrory in our Veterans Department, and ask him about the minister, who speaks, he has spoken every year for a number of years at the Memorial Day. David Johnson, there we go. Yes. Okay.
Any other, Mr. Green?
Yeah, so you're posting it internally because it's a unionized position.
That's right.
Is there, I mean, I guess, is there a reason for not publicly posting it?
Well, we
I mean,
have to
because- I
post
mean-
it exclusively internally for 10 days.
Okay.
So I can't post it publicly until the union contract obligations have been satisfied.
So after that, would you post it?
If I don't find a satisfactory internal candidate, I would post it externally then,
I
yes.
guess my question has to do with whether you're opening up opportunities, and correct me if I'm wrong, or if I don't have the full context, for minority candidates and others who may not be in your pipeline in the library system for a variety of reasons. And sort of, are we perpetuating, that cycle? That's my question. And I'm sorry, I don't have a fully focused question, but, the general idea is.
Well, I've been working diligently since my hiring to diversify our staff. We have done quite a lot of external hiring. I think that I can't say for sure in this case because I don't know how they're going to interview or what's going to happen, but if I do feel pretty strongly that if I have longtime dedicated union employees who are excellent at their jobs and experienced, then that wouldn't sort of meet my criteria for a candidate for now. But usually when people are promoted from within, that creates other positions opening elsewhere. So I don't think that it would necessarily prevent, future candidates from acquiring employment with the public libraries of Brookline. And I'm not, and who knows, maybe, again, I don't know how they're going to interview. I can't tell the future, but if I have, I think general business practices, if you have someone internally who's already trained and experienced with your organization, then that's an efficiency to, offer them a promotion that they're qualified for.
Yeah, I guess the point I'm trying to make is, or the question or point or whatever, is I hope that going forward, in terms of filling those positions that open up,
Yeah.
you ensure that the candidate pool is diverse, so that we're not into a cycle of just, turning over
Absolutely.
non-diverse employment pools.
Well, just to reassure you maybe, that the Assistant Director for Technology position, we are down to 3 finalists. One is a local man, one is a woman from far away, and one is an Indian gentleman who's currently working in the country of Qatar. So we are exploring quite aggressively, options as they present themselves.
Any other comments, questions? Then I'll move authorizing the filling of the following vacancies: local history librarian, a reference supervisor, and a supervisor of collection development. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And moving on to the town clerk. Question of authorizing the vacancy position of administrative assistant in the town clerk's office. Ms. Goldberg. Actually knew it. Tell us what's going on.
Well, I'm here tonight seeking authorization to fill our administrative assistant position. It is a CA. It's a critical position in our office. It includes supervisory and administrative duties, as well as managing accounts payable and performing daily operations. We would like to begin the process as soon as possible. The vacancy has occurred because our administrative assistant is retiring June 3rd. So,
Want to get going.
yes.
Questions, comments?
I just want to note that Sheila used to work upstairs for us before she came down to you, and I'm sorry to see she's retiring, because she was very pleasant to work with.
Well, I think she's, if I could say this, we'd like to thank her for her diligence and her productive work, and she's very meticulous in what she does. We do wish her the best in her retirement, and it's a decision that she and her husband made. So,
This is going to
glad for
be,
them, not so happy for us.
I'll encourage you to work to attract a broad and diverse applicant pool, and
Yes, I mean, we've already talked with HR, and with their help, we would focus on obtaining as diverse a pool of candidates as possible.
questions, comments?
I would just encourage you to also work with Lloyd Jeleno, Dr. Jeleno, who's the Director of Diversity, Inclusion, Community Relations, who may also have some great ideas about how to connect you with a diverse set of applicants.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other comments, I'll move authorization of a vacancy, filling of a vacancy in the position of administrative assistant in the town clerk's office. All those in favor, Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you
Goldberg.
very much.
And now, Mr. Martineau, we're going to hear about the Village Street Fair Festival. This is a new event. Am I correct in thinking that?
This is a new event happening this Sunday from noon to 4, just over here on Harvard Street. It's something that a number of the village businesses, since I've been here anyway, and I imagined even before then, have been talking about doing, closing down the street and having a good old-fashioned street fair. Arts and crafts, family-friendly activities, live music, good food, all of that sort of thing. And so the organizers have been working diligently over the past several months, one of whom is with us tonight. Alex, raise your hand. Brookline Village resident. Her husband owns Village Green Renewal, just over in the village as well. So we're looking forward to it. The town departments have been really supportive in helping us sort out all of the logistics. It's not easy to close a street anywhere, and let
Right.
alone Harvard Street. But we've notified abutters, and we'll have the
And the MBTA knows, right?
Yep, the MBTA will be rerouting the buses appropriately, and we'll be blocking off the streets, and we'll have all the necessary equipment and details to do that,
So this is this Sunday from 12 to 4.
12 to 4, and that section of Harvard Street from Linden to the Washington Street intersection will be closed from 10 to 5 to allow for setup and breakdown. So, should be a good time. You should come out if you're around.
Any questions, comments?
How many, could I just ask a question? How many merchants are participating?
I think it's something like 40 to 50 merchants. It's pretty easy. If you have a business on Harvard Street, you can literally just walk out the door and set up your info table. A number of businesses will be offering food samples as well as food for sale. So it should be fun.
Sounds good.
Right. Well, I'm looking forward to it, and I hope everyone in our vast audience comes and has a good time.
More info at villagefair.org, thevillagefair.org.
Thevillagefair.org.
Thank you so much.
Great. Is there a link to it on the town website? We ought to do
There
that.
is, and I know that the town Facebook is loaded with publicity. So.
Cool. Okay, thank you. Okay, now we're going to talk about the Quetzalcoatl
Ketzelwake.
Okay. Sister City Project. Mr. Sagan.
Thank you very much. And thanks to all of you for your past and continuing support for the Brookline Ketzelwake Sister City Project.
One of these days I'll learn how to pronounce
I've been
it.
involved with for how many years I can't tell you, and I still can't pronounce it. So, but thank you, and apart from thanking all of you and without detracting from the contributions that you've all made, I want to especially thank Nancy Daly for her engagement and involvement with the Sister City Project.
We should tell everyone, because they've been hearing from me for a long time about the ambulance, and we almost have it. It's being totally refurbished, and will be on site when?
Hopefully soon.
Soon.
That's a appropriately fuzzy answer.
It's in the works, it's in the works. A vehicle has been identified, and they're just in the process of actually finding a replacement vehicle for that vehicle before it gets delivered to Ketzelwake. So thank you, Nancy, and thank you all. So we're here tonight for two different reasons. One, we're planning another educational week in October, and I want to share some of our plans and also to thank you for considering a proclamation. And also wanted to update you related to some of our activities. Dr. Kaya Vanderzeel and Dr. Peter Moyer just returned from Ketzelwake, and they're going to share some of their work momentarily. So I know that some of you are already very familiar with Sister City, but for those who may not be as familiar, we're going to be celebrating the 28th anniversary, believe it or not, of the Sister City Project between Ketzelwake and the town of Brookline. We've worked, our collaboration has been in many, many different areas. In healthcare, for example, we built a health center. We continue to support it. We are supporting primary care and healthcare delivery in Ketzelwake. We're also working on the efforts to combat the epidemic of chronic kidney disease, which you'll hear more about in a second. In education, we've built a school, a library. We continue to support the library. We continue to support the educational system. We continue to support a mobile library. We've also been involved in teacher training, and most recently, we've helped open 2 computer classrooms, the first computer classrooms in Ketzelwake, which is a town of about 10,000 people. We built housing. We continue to support an arts program, and we've also been involved in special needs education. Last year was the first year that Brookline had a Sister City Week, and there was really a wonderful response from the Brookline community. We had 3 visitors from Ketzelwake, and they were very, very warmly received by you, by the town staff, by the schools, by Brookline High School, by the headmaster, by the Brookline Rotary, by Governor Dukakis and Congressman Kennedy, at St. Mary's Church, and at a cultural program at the Coolidge Corner Theater that featured a Nicaraguan poet, and I know you had a poet agenda item earlier tonight, but the poet that we had was a French Legion of Honor winner and had formerly been with the Ministry of Culture in Nicaragua. And I think it's a great example of how that Coolidge Corner Theater event last year with the Nicaraguan poet was a great example of how we learn from one another. Poetry in Spanish-speaking countries is much more a part of the fabric of life than it is here. And we were really very privileged to have one of the leading poets in the country visit Brookline and share her work. So this year we're planning a number of activities, educational activities in October. There's going to be a Science on Screen program at the Coolidge Corner Theater. There'll be a talk by one of the leading experts who's been involved with our medical health committee about the chronic kidney disease epidemic, which has caused the loss of more than 20,000 lives across Central America. Later in the same week, we're also going to have a public forum at the Brookline Teen Center. It's going to be moderated by Governor Michael Dukakis, And the keynote speaker is going to be former New York Times bureau chief in Managua, and really one of the leading experts on U.S. foreign policy in Nicaragua, Central America, and more generally global foreign policy, Stephen Kinzer. You'll see his name in the Globe from time to time. So we hope you'll join us at those events. Unless there are questions, I'm going to turn it over to my fellow Sister City board members, Dr. Vanderzeel and Dr. Moyer. And actually, I should add, they both did, I said they both came back from Quetzalcoatl. We're all volunteers. When they travel to Quetzalcoatl, they travel at their own expense. Their travel expense, their room and board expense. We have no paid staff. We're doing this as volunteers, and it's really, from my standpoint, a privilege to have the opportunity to work as a volunteer in this collaborative project. So, Kaya?
Yeah.
Hi, good evening. I'm Kaya Vanderzeel. So as he said, Peter Moyer and I went down this summer. We went down together last summer as well. That was my first summer. It was Peter's second summer, I believe. And it really is an amazing experience. We've been working this whole year, since January, on the project for the summer. It's with public health and medical students from BU and Tufts this year. There are 6 of them. And we've been working with BU. So I just want to say that the major project this summer is a follow-up study on chronic kidney disease. In 2008, BU did the first cross-sectional prevalence study of chronic kidney disease anywhere in the world, because that area is very much affected, as are other areas, mainly along the Pacific, Sri Lanka as well. But so they did the first published study of this type in 2008. So our project for this summer, and it's really a monumental undertaking, I think, that these students can try to get this done in 6 to 8 weeks, I hope will work. So in that study in 2008, they identified 770 people that they interviewed and did blood samples on. Out of that group, 98 of them were diagnosed with having chronic kidney disease, and the rest were not at that point. So the attempt is to now follow up on those 98 identified cases, and 200 and, well, they're going to be 319 altogether, so 98 and 221, 200, yeah, to follow up with questionnaires, blood tests, blood pressure readings, a variety of other things, medical record reviews, if appropriate. Obviously, have to look at a death registry to see what's happened. And this is going to be the first study of its kind in this sort of, with this disease, once again. This has Institutional Review Board approval from BU. It has approval of the Ministry of Health, and it's important to get those approvals when you go to a country. And for the students and for the ability to publish this and share this with other people, you need the Institutional Review Board approval. So it's a really exciting project. Just to kind of give you so far, so Peter and I went the 16th through the 23rd. None of the interviewing or anything took place then, but in the ensuing 2 weeks, they have gotten a lot of the kinks out of the system. You know, you always think when you go someplace, oh great, we're going to just do this, but it doesn't work out that way. There are always new things that you have to consider. So of the first 50 that they interviewed, 16 had already died. 8 of them were in the cases and 8 in the controls. And excuse me, I think that's right. Well, 8 died of chronic kidney disease, and they range in age from 26 to 60. So this is a devastating disease, killing young people. And obviously there are more to do that. I should say that 11 were actually in the cases and 5 in the control. So it means that was 11, almost 12% of the cases have passed away, and so far, you know, done. Anyway, so it's an incredibly exciting thing, but it's quite labor intensive. They need informed consent. I mean, it's a whole long process to get this done. So that's one part. The other thing that many people Nicaragua and then Kesselwaukee, which is a very rural community. These people are cane cutters mainly. They also grow peanuts, so a lot of them are agricultural workers. But they all think that it's in the water. And people have poo-pooed that, but it may actually be in the water. So we wanted to get some mapping of water sources and to see how that relates to where the cases are. Last year, we were told such a map existed. We never saw it. This year when we came, they said, oh yeah, we have it, but we just have to put the data on a map. And we didn't see it in that week before we left. It was due the Friday before we were leaving, but evidently it was, we now have some sort of a map. The unfortunate thing about it is it turns out that some foreign NGO has been in there digging private wells. So there are all these private wells that are not on the map. So how that's going to work out, I mean, I don't know how many there are, how deep they are, because all that makes a big difference. And the third project is a continuation of these sexual health chats, I guess. I don't know what you should really call them. It deals with domestic violence, contraception, you know, healthy relationships and that sort of thing in the high school and in 5th and 6th graders, so in the elementary school. They had done one of those with the younger students last year, and they set up a few for this year. This chronic kidney disease project is going to take a lot of time, and whether there's time to do any follow-up. There was some hope for the students this year. They wanted to set up like a peer counseling program so that there were students in the schools who could answer questions or, you know, well, do peer counseling around these issues. Whether they'll be able to do that or not, I don't know that time will allow them to do that. These students are working hard. They're having to go out on the weekends because the people who are still working are working during the week, so they have to go on Saturdays and Sundays. We also have students from the medical school in Leon, which is the capital of the department that the Kesselwaukee is in, who will work with the students on the weekends. A lot of moving parts to this thing, and Dan Brooks at BU, who's running it, is Skyping with the students on a regular basis, and we may need to join in as well. Anyway, questions? May have given you more information than you need, but I'm excited about this.
Well, I just want to add that one of the things that, this is a very poor area. People's income is very low, and they don't get much from the state or the federal government there. That's what we learned when we were talking about the ambulance. And but this study on chronic kidney disease really was kicked off by the volunteers from Brookline who originally, a school nurse at one of our schools went down to help build the health center or something like that. And she is married to Dan Brooks at the public health center, at the public school of public health at BU, and said to him, you're going to be very interested in this. And so it was kind of this little group of volunteers really sparked this effort, and which eventually got, I think it was IMF or World Bank funding. World Bank funding. So, and it really is a very regional issue. It's even seen in other parts of the world in similar climates. So this chronic kidney disease, and it's particularly devastating because they don't have, it's not easy to get dialysis there. So these are young men primarily, getting, 25-year-old men getting chronic kidney disease, whereas here in the U.S., the data shows that it's, it's typically a disease of people in their 60s or 70s, and so it really has been devastating to the area as all these men have died prematurely, primarily men, some women get it, but and the BU people and the students that have been sent down have been trying to pinpoint the causes, and so it's it's fascinating work, and really a tribute, I think, to the volunteers of our Sister City project that sparked a real dedicated look at this problem, I'm sorry.
Dr. Moyer?
Good evening. I'm not going to take long on the second physician. Went with Kaya this year and last, and then I was there 3 years ago with another woman, Carol Pinheiro, from the Sister City Committee. I'm going to say very few things. First of all, something you probably haven't thought of, but if you went there, you'd think of it. It's safe. It's a safe country and it's a safe town, which is always nice because we go with 6 students and ourselves. They brag that it's the 8th, I don't know where they got this data, but they brag that it's the 8th safest nation in the world, wherever that comes from, I don't know. But it is safe. One of the nice things, we have at the end of the week that Kay and I are there, we have a banquet for the various town leadership, and one of whom was the chief of police, who told me, and I asked him about arms, and they have, for a town of 10,000, he said they have 92 registered arms, and if you have an unregistered arm, you pay a hefty fine, namely you give up your horse or whatever other vehicle you have. If there's a battle between 2 neighboring camps and they're both armed, he will actually withdraw the arms in the middle of the battle. I thought it was very ingenious, and I thought it was a lesson that we could learn. Anyway, it's safe. That's nice. It's also hot. The day that we got there, there was a national conference on climate change. They call it Cambio Climatico. So they're aware of it. They've had flooding in their coastal areas and along the Pacific. They kept mentioning to us, to Kay and me, how hot it was, a couple degrees centigrade warmer than in the past. I don't know that for a fact, but that's what a number of people mentioned. And it was dry, so the heat and the dryness was difficult on animals. The animals looked scrawny. A lot of ribbed, horses and cows. We actually ran across at one point, a horse was literally starving to death. And they gave him, I was with the other doctor, and he said, and they wanted the doctor because he was a doctor to tend to the horse, so he says, give him some grass, and the horse ate the grass. They thought the horse needed an antibiotic. The guy said, listen, if he's willing and able to eat the grass, this horse is just hungry. So there's a lot of heat and a lot of dryness, and they think about it a lot, which is encouraging, and it's the same problems that we share. The other thing I wanted to mention was relationships. You all have, and I know a couple of you are newer, but you all have co-hosted the group that comes here is typically mayor, health, and education. It's been a wonderful experience for them. It's enlightening. They see the broader world. And it's also very nice for us to host them here and entertain them. So we have that reciprocal relationship when we get there. The mayor, some of you may remember, it's a woman, Raina. It was very friendly to us and went out of her way to host us, took us aside one afternoon and gave us a little tour of the town and the tour of the local river. Where there's a physician there, a fellow named Escoto, and there's the head of the lab, Miriam, who've been there both for 20 years. They know us. When we walked in, I listened to Miriam scolding one of her students, saying, listen, when these guys say meeting at 8 o'clock, they mean 8 o'clock. That's nice. So we have nice relationships with them, which is nice. The kids are nice in the town. There are lots of things that we can learn. They're very nice to their kids. They're very warm. And the kids, several of them call me affectionately grandpops, which is abuelo in Spanish, in case you know any Spanish. Anyway, what else did I want to mention? We're in the middle of all the achievements that they've made, and I feel very proud of Brookline in terms of our relationship with them. A lot of these are long before my time. We've just recently come up with the idea of an ultrasound machine. All of you know ultrasound is a great technology for around the world. With a dentist, there's a wonderful woman named Guzman who's now going to ask us, and I bet we're going to come up with the money for it, for a compressor so they can so they can drill teeth and fill in cavities rather than just extract them. This is in one of the remote posts. So anyway, we're doing a lot of good things. And I think the town has really been very helpful in letting us do them. So thank you.
Right. Well, I remember when the group was here, it was about a year ago, I guess. It was a very interesting experience for me.
And it's clear that there's a real partnership, a real relationship between Brookline and Kesawake, and it's not sort of Johnny-come-lately. There's a long history and
Right.
mutually beneficial history. And I was really taken by that last October when we got to spend time as a board with the delegation that visited us.
Right. So we're being asked to sign a proclamation, so we'll be taking a vote, and the proclamation reads, whereas 2015 marks the 20th 28th anniversary of the Brookline-Ketsawaukee Sister City Project, BQSQP. CP.
That's what you make your checks out to.
Founding in 1987, whereas BQSCP represent the very best people in two communities of the world, learning about each other and believing that with generosity, collaboration, and resolve, good things are possible, and whereas BQSCP has continued to partner with the Ketsawaukee community in Nicaragua in a wide range of areas, including funding for the first 2 computer classrooms in the community, for healthcare equipment and supplies, for transportation services, for healthcare workers and patients, for a mobile library program, and for providing ongoing support to the Ketsawaukee Library, built with the support of BQSCP, for an arts program, the building of a primary school for special needs education. And whereas BQSCP has continued to partner with the Ketsawaukee community in other ways, including, for example, helping identify the causes of and combat the epidemic of chronic kidney disease of unknown origin, and organizing a series of summer health projects, including in the summer of 2015, with 2 medical and 4 grad students in public health working in Ketsawaukee on projects related to the epidemic of chronic kidney disease of unknown origin, to efforts to combat the relatively high rates of teen pregnancy, and to studying the water supply. And whereas a range of educational and cultural activities are being planned for the week of October 18th, including a Science on Screen program in collaboration with the Coolidge Corners Theater on October 19th that will discuss the epidemic of chronic kidney disease of unknown origin in the region, and a public forum to be held at Brookline Teen Center, moderated by Governor Michael Dukakis, with notable author and foreign correspondent Stephen Kinzer in collaboration with the Brookline Adult and Community Education Program. Be it therefore resolved that we, the Board of Selectmen for the Town of Brookline, on behalf of the citizens of Brookline, proclaim October 18th to 24th of 2015 Brookline Sister City Week, and congratulate the Brookline-Ketsawaukee Sister City Project for 28 years of partnership between our 2 communities. So I'll move acceptance of this proclamation. All those in favor?
Aye.
Selectman Daley, Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green? Aye. And the chair votes aye. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, so now we're moving on to going from Sister City.
We should note, since he's here, John Dempsey is going to be Dancing with the Stars on behalf of the Sister City program.
Very good. So we're moving on to talk about solid waste. That's the theme for the rest of the evening. So the first item is, I guess, a housekeeping item regarding our the recycling and solid waste extra work orders to close out the fiscal year. So, Mr. Pap Sturgeon, why don't you walk us through this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guarantee I'm going to trash the rest of your evening. Anyway, the first item is a cleanup item for fiscal 2015 contracts that are related to both solid waste disposal and single-stream recycling. Contract PW 10-12 extra work order number 4 is for the processing of single-stream recycling with Waste Management of Massachusetts. This extra work order is in the amount of $55,000. In our contract with Waste Management, we have a annual collection cost plus a processing fee that is based on number 8 newspaper. If the markets fluctuate, we either pay extra or sometimes we get money back, and I will tell you that over the last several years, the markets have been terrible for recycled materials, so we've been pretty much paying extra. This $55,000 represents fluctuations in the market for this past fiscal year and a cost that we have incurred projected through the end of this month, June, and we'll finish the fiscal year. The second extra work order, number 1, is for contract PW 15-01, and that is for the disposal of solid waste with Casella Waste Management of Massachusetts. This extra work order is in the amount of $10,200, and this represents an unexpected increase in tonnage for solid waste for the fiscal year. It amounts to about 150 tons extra of solid waste. We do pay this contract by the ton. The figure is $68 a ton. This will allow us to project also through the end of June for the extra tonnage, and this is expected to be the final extra work order for this contract as well.
Any questions, comments? The question I have is, when the market for paper is weak, what happens to the paper?
Generally, the recycling facilities will process it, bale it, whatever they do with it, and a lot of times they'll hold it in anticipation of the market increasing, if they think the market is going to increase. A lot of times the market is just totally tanked. And I will tell you that at that point, at some point in the process, if there's no resaleable market, the material is disposed of.
How do they dispose of it?
That's generally incinerated.
Selectman Daley?
Yeah, my question was, I was a little surprised to see our solid waste was going up, and I'm just was trying to figure out why that might be. We certainly do have many kids in town now, as we're seeing in our schools and all the daycare centers, and that probably may account for some of the increase, just that, babies with diapers and that sort of thing tend to generate some solid waste, but I wondered if you had any thoughts on why that might be going up.
The general trend, as I've told you, has been downward for solid waste tonnage. 150 tons out of about 9,500 tons is really not a lot. There could be a lot of reasons for that. Could be higher than anticipated cleanouts in September when the college kids come back. There could be many things. 150 tons really over the course of a year is not a lot to be concerned about.
Selectman Green?
What drives the price of recycled paper?
It's based on the market for, I believe it's number 8 newspaper.
So it's a newspaper print?
Yes, yes. And as we all know, that the volume of newspaper print has been decreasing. I don't know exactly what drives the market. I do know that our particular contract is based on the market for number 8 news.
Okay, any other comments, questions? So I will move that we approve extra work order number 4 in the amount of $55,000 in connection with a contract for containers, curbside collection and processing of single stream recycling with Waste Management of Massachusetts, Inc. of Hampton, New Hampshire. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green? Aye. I'll move now acceptance of the extra work order in the amount of, extra work order number 1 in the amount of $10,200 in connection with contract for containers, curbside collection and disposal of solid waste with Casella Waste Management of Peabody, Massachusetts. All those in favor? Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. So now we're moving on to pay-as-you-throw, and I think this is going to be the first of perhaps a number of presentations and discussions of pay-as-you-throw. As anyone who's been following, say, the override and many recent discussions about our budget, there's a proposal to change the way we do trash collection, which is going to affect pretty much everyone and hopefully change the way we think about solid waste and and hopefully provide incentives to reduce our generation of solid waste. With that in mind, and that's built into the budget, it was built into the override, and while it was built into the override, the outcome, the financial outcome, there's still details to be figured out, and there's still a program of public education. There's still decisions to be made about how this is going to proceed, when it's going to proceed, and it didn't get as much attention in the override debate as some of the other aspects of the override, but it's really an integral piece of the whole package. So with that in mind, I turn it over to Commissioner Papasturgeon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You did a great job. I think we're done here. I'm here before you, as you said, to present some recommendations on two items, really. One is a automated collection system for solid waste, and the second is for a so-called hybrid pay-as-you-throw waste collection proposal. I have some members of my senior staff here with me tonight. Ed Gilbert, who is my environmental health supervisor, runs our sanitation program, and Kevin Johnson, our director of highway and sanitation. Peter Ditto, of course, has been here for other business and decided to stay and support us, so we appreciate that. And I also want to recognize some members of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee that are also here tonight, I hope, in support of what I'm about to present. And as you said, Mr. Chairman, this is really the first go at it in terms of a formal presentation. I have made mention of this proposal on numerous occasions over the last several months, but really this is the first formal presentation, and it will be a thoroughly vetted public process as we go forward. There'll be I'm assuming there'll be at least one, if not more, public hearings held at some point to get the public's view on and the public's input on this before you actually make a vote. It is a complicated system, and I want to explain it as simply as I can going forward. So we're going to go through this fairly quickly. This is the 10,000-foot altitude view. And as we go along over the summer, we'll be getting into more of the detail. But since the release of the final report of the Moderators Committee on Waste Disposal, and that was back in May of 2013, the DPW has been investigating the conversion of the town's solid waste collection system to a hybrid pay-as-you-throw program utilizing the semi-automated collection of wheeled carts similar to the current single-stream recycling program, which of course, is through private contractor. The committee made major recommendations as follows. Number one, implement an automated collection system using 64-gallon wheeled carts. Number two, provide for occasional extra waste disposal using prepaid plastic trash bags. And three, maintain the current yard waste and bulky item collection programs as is, without any changes. So with those three pieces as a mandate going forward, just as an explanation, we do have currently in-house solid waste program. I apologize for the size of this, but our current in-house curbside collection program requires 15 employees. We use 5 31 cubic yard packers, rubbish packers, and we use 1 16 cubic yard alley packer. The total cost to provide this service in FY15 was about $892,000, and inflated annually over 10 years, assuming the replacement of a vehicle every third year in our capital equipment program would total $9.7 million, and that's that figure that you see at the far right bottom of that total column. Those are the 10-year costs to maintain our solid waste collection program under current status quo conditions. In April of 2014, we did go out to bid for the curbside collection and disposal of solid waste. and bidders were asked to provide costs for both manual and automated collection at curbside, as well as hauling and off-site disposal. A 10-year analysis of curbside collection using the town's current fully loaded costs as a base indicated that private manual collection, which I have not shown here, but would cost an additional $1.1 million over a 10-year period. And the reason we asked for these bids was so that we could judge where we were relative to private costs, how public costs, our public costs compared to private costs. And we were pleasantly surprised to find that even using the low bid for private manual collection, that we were $1.1 million lower over a 10-year period, doing it in-house with our own folks. The second chart that I put up on the board there, it shows projected private automated collection costs, which we also asked for bids on. And these costs would only save, they would save about $750,000 over the same 10-year period. So if we were to go with a private automated collection contractor over a 10-year period, yes, we would save about $750,000, but that would also involve the reduction of our workforce in sanitation by anywhere from 8 to 10 employees. Employees that are also dedicated to other tasks during the year, particularly and most importantly, snow removal. So we had estimated that in order to compensate for the loss of these employees, we would have to add an average of $50,000 per fiscal year to the snow and ice budget to increase contractual services to cover for the lost manpower. So ranged over the 10-year period, that would amount to an additional $500,000 in other contractual costs. So the actual savings is really only about $200,000 over a 10-year period to go to a private automated collection. Really not a great incentive, I think, in terms of the lost benefits of keeping it in-house. Based on these bid results, the department recommended that the board award a 6-year contract for the hauling and disposal of solid waste only to Casella Waste Systems for an annual savings of about $200,000 annually. In addition, the department was able to bring back in-house the curbside collection of metals that was previously done contractually for an additional contract savings of $87,000. Further analysis indicated that the town could implement a new in-house automated collection program, and that's the final spreadsheet, using wheeled carts at curbside and save over $2.2 million over the same 10-year period as compared to the current manual collection system that we now have. That savings is significant, I believe, and kind of lays out the path, a path for the town over the next 10 years that we really cannot ignore in terms of total savings for solid waste collection. Just some quick points, just to reiterate. The current system requires the use of 5 31 cubic yard packers. In addition to that, there is a 16 cubic yard alley truck, and those trucks have to be replaced. Generally, we're replacing one truck every 3 years. And the reason we do it every 3 years is we generally do a 3-year lease for the capital purchase, so that in the budget, every single year, we're doing a lease payment on at least one truck. Automated collection, however, requires only 2 32 cubic yard side loaders, very similar to the trucks that you now see around town picking up recycling, operated by Waste Management. It requires also 1 32 cubic yard rear loader. This rear loader is also a truck that we have in our current fleet. It was purchased last year, and also the 16 cubic yard standard pickup that we use for alleyways and narrow streets. So there would be a reduction of about 2 trucks when we go to automated. The important piece to note is that side loader trucks allow for a one-man operation. They're with the automated arm, and in most cases, it's a one-man operation. The rear loader does still require a 2-man operation, as does the alley truck. And again, yard waste, white metal, and bulky metal material collection would continue with no change, just like it is now. We pick up those materials at no charge. This system, however, automated systems do require the use of wheeled carts in order to work efficiently. The current bid price for 64-gallon carts, which we did include in our bids last April, were for $44.36 each, for a total cost of $585,552. I should tell you that we have 13,200 households that we collect rubbish from, which is about 54% of the total households townwide. The remainder are collected by private haulers. So in any automated system using carts, we would have to purchase 13,200 carts as a minimum so that everyone had one cart. To use 64-gallon carts, the total costs for those would be $585,000. And for 35-gallon carts, the bid price was $36.41 for a total cost of $480,000. I should note that while the Moderators Committee recommended the use of 64-gallon carts, with a minority recommending 35-gallon carts, the department strongly believes that in order to increase the town's recycling rate, an effort has to be made to reduce the amount of solid waste that we generate. Our current data indicates that prior to the implementation of single-stream recycling back in 2011, our recycling rate was 30.7%, and that is the pure recycling rate, or what we call the DEP statistical rate, which takes the amount of tonnage for single-stream recycling, adds the amount of tonnage for solid waste, so we have the total tonnage collected for both, and that becomes the denominator divided into the recycling tonnage. So that's pure. It does not take into consideration tonnages that we collect for yard waste, which is also a recycled material, for white metals, which we also recycle, for electronics and cathode ray tube monitors and televisions. All that is recycled material. The pure recycled rate does not take that into consideration. If you were to consider all of the other materials, that 30% actually rises quite high to about 49%. But that's not the figure that we look at. We're looking at the 30%, and that was prior to the implementation of single stream. Once we did go to single stream, our recycling rate jumped to almost 37%. And that was coupled with almost a 10% reduction in solid waste tonnage at the same time. But the problem now is that since single stream, believe it or not, is 5 years old now, our recycling rate has plateaued at the 36% level. Nothing has changed really in the last several years, probably 3 years, in terms of the recycling rate. And it looks like we've plateaued and we've kind of got into a groove. And, you know, solid waste tonnage, as you saw earlier, is fluctuating a little bit. Sometimes it goes up a bit, sometimes it goes down a bit. But recycling tonnage is not really increasing the way we think it should increase. I think the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, and not speaking for them, but I know as the Commissioner of Public Works, I would be very happy to see our pure recycling rate up around 50%. And I think that we can get there. However, in order to do that, we need to make some structural changes in the way that we do business in terms of our solid waste management program. Additional incentives have also been made available from Mass Department of Environmental Protection in the form of a state grant that allows for a $15 per cart grant, pure grant to the town for the purchase of 35-gallon wheeled carts that are collected once a week. It would also allow, as grant eligible, the purchase of 64-gallon carts. However, that would also be accompanied by a bi-weekly pickup. So to be eligible for the grant, you can use 35-gallon toters that you pick up once a week, or you could use 64-gallon toters that you would collect every other week. Not really a consideration that we thought was prudent. But the use of this grant would reduce the cost of the smaller toters to about $282,000 from the original $480,000, for an overall savings of about $300,000. The $300,000 is the difference in net cost from purchasing 64-gallon carts to 35-gallon carts. About a $300,000 difference. This is just an indication of what the actual impact is on the Department of Public Works budget. If you factor in the purchase of carts, and these numbers were based on the purchase of 35-gallon carts, we would be purchasing using FY15 surplus funds, and that's the $200,000 surplus that we generated in FY15 from the reduction in the solid waste disposal price per ton. That $200,000 would be used to purchase about 5,500 carts. The state grant would allow us up to $198,000, and it would purchase an additional a little bit more than 5,400 carts. And we would propose to lease purchase the remaining 2,300 carts over a 4-year lease purchase program, very similar to the program that we used for purchasing the single-stream recycling toters back in 2011. Those have various costs assigned to them.
Before you leave that, just to remind you, as Selectman Waschinsky said, those are the savings that we really were incorporated within the 3-year override plan, the bulk of the municipal budget savings.
So just to highlight, the first column is FY15, and FY15 uses the $200,000 surplus plus there was an additional $87,000 surplus for the retainage of the metals collection in-house. But that would allow us to purchase $200,000 worth of carts, plus pay the first year's payment on the lease purchase of those carts. That's the $21,094. And then there are some other things that are built in there, like the additional big belly recyclers that we've been rolling out throughout town. But the bottom line shows that once we get to fiscal 19, that we are saving in our annual DPW budget about $440,000 annually going forward from that point. And that's after the trucks have been purchased fully. Those are the new side loaders, and the carts have been paid for.
So I'll just note there's a ramp up of the savings. So in the first 2 years, the savings isn't quite as great as the startup costs are exhausted. Then we realize the savings under the program.
That kind of explains the automated collection system. I want to talk a little bit about hybrid pay-as-you-throw. And really what makes it hybrid is because of the use of both the carts and the bags. If we were to have a pure bag system, that would be a pure pay-as-you-throw system. The hybrid is because we're using both toters, and as I'll explain to you in a second, we're going to be also using overflow bags that would be purchased retail. Brookline's current sanitation regulations allow for the unlimited disposal of household rubbish, which is collected curbside by the sanitation division. A shift to any system using a single-wheeled cart, regardless of the size, would require additional means to dispose of overflow rubbish during times when a single container was not adequate. Current data has indicated that the average Brookline household disposes of 26.5 pounds of trash per week. And that's what I have up on the screen before you now. And that's based on calculating the total tonnage, which is 9,100 tons a year that we collect, divided by 13,200 households, divided by 52 weeks at the weight per volume of our average household trash. Says that the average household in Brookline throws away 26.5 pounds of trash per week. We've also calculated that the total that you see up on the back, you might want to wheel that forward, Kevin, that is a 35-gallon wheeled cart. That will hold, on average, about 40 pounds of trash. So really more than enough to take the average going forward. Wow. The generally accepted method in use today for handling the overflow trash is a 30-gallon heavy-duty plastic bag that would be manufactured with unique Brookline identification on it, and marketed locally at a fair cost. These bags are rated for 25 pounds, so you can get an additional 25 pounds into these overflow bags. The bags are readily identified by our drivers, or would be readily identified by our drivers as Brookline bags. They would be an off color and would have the town seal on the bag and all of that. The bags are generally available in rolls of 5 bags, and we are based on this pricing analysis, recommending, or at least proposing or suggesting that the price per roll should be about $10 for the purchase of 5 bags. While the use of the bags may be widespread at the beginning of the program, it is expected that in time, the use of the overflow bags will decrease as residents are able to adjust their disposal habits and increase their recycling. Those are the outcomes that we're hoping for as we go forward with this system. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about a 35-gallon cart. The carts would be, the color is not important, but the carts would be imprinted with the town seal on the side that would identify them, just like our single-stream recycling carts are imprinted. The bag is very similar to what you see there. It's a 30-gallon heavy-duty overflow bag. It'll be a color that's unique to Brookline, and we can talk forever about picking different colors. I remember that was the hot issue back when we were trying to decide the color of the single-stream toters, and we finally had to make a decision on the blue. But the bag would also be imprinted with the town seal. We would enter into a contract with a company called Zero Waste, who would be responsible for manufacturing the bags, marketing the bags to local retailers, and making sure the stores are stocked, and they would be available at most all the retailers. For that service, we pay them a minimum fee. It's about 30 cents a bag that we pay them for that service, and they handle the whole retail program. I do want to talk just a second. There is one downside to the system, and I'm sure that when we have the public hearings, it's going to be talked about. This is a downside to any pay-as-you-throw system. It could potentially be an increase in illegal dumping of trash in either public areas or in private containers. We're well aware of the potential for that happening. In our conversations with other communities that have implemented this program, they've expressed to us that it's not really been a problem, and it's generally one that is dealt with through enforcement and usually ends fairly quickly. They have reported that illegal dumping was really not a major concern. It was generally short-termed at the beginning of the program. However, we do expect that with the rollout of this system or any system like this, that we're going to have to do some proactive enforcement to make sure that trash is not going into private dumpsters, that it shouldn't be, that it's not being put into public spaces, or it's not being put into someone else's toter. So there's going to have to be some proactive enforcement. Just a little bit about the funding and the timeline. Before I get into that, I do want to show you this chart. This chart was made available from Mass DEP, and this is one of their databases. These are all the communities in Massachusetts that are using carts for either solid waste or recycling. Once again, I apologize for the size of the figures, but there are 29 communities listed there, and they all are using they are using carts for both solid waste. Some are using for solid waste and recycling. I've listed the tonnages for solid waste and single stream recycling on the side, and actually calculated the recycling rate, because it is related. When you're looking at a community, you should be able to see what their recycling rate is and what they're trying to accomplish, and maybe get some insight as to why they picked the size container they did. If you look at the chart, and I do have handouts for all this information that I will give you before I leave, but but most of the carts are 64 gallon. There are a few 95s, there's a couple of 48s. And if you look at the data, you'll see that there's only one community that's using 32 gallon toters. That's not to say that 32 gallon toters is not the right way to go, or in our case, 35. In our conversations with some of these communities, they've expressed to us their desire to downsize their containers because they found that it's a lot more than really than folks need. Newton, for instance, is currently negotiating a new solid waste contract and is considering downsizing their containers. Don't know if they'll do it, but there are some communities that wish that they had gone with the smaller container at the outset to try to encourage a higher recycling rate. So, you can have debates about the size, you can have debates about the use of the carts, and I'm sure that when we have our public hearings, we're going to talk about all of that stuff. But in order to instigate a structural change to the way we do business with solid waste, there has to be some dramatic change in the way we do business. And I think the Department of Public Works feels that this is the best way to go. It's a progressive stance, I think, that we're taking. One that will probably position us in a really good place over the next 5 to 10 years compared to what other communities are doing, and I think that given some time, it'll work. Just want to talk for a minute about funding and the timelines. Because of the potential impact that adoption of this system would create, it is suggested that a series of public hearings be held to obtain input from those affected the most. We really need to do that. However, should the board eventually decide to adopt the hybrid pay-as-you-throw system, the timeline and funding could be as follows. Purchase the carts using the $200,000 surplus in FY15 disposal funds, and lease purchase the 2,300 carts over a 4-year period at $21,000 annually beginning in FY15, and we'll talk about that in the very next item after this. Purchase an additional 5,500 carts in FY16 using Mass DEP grant funds of $198,000. The FY16 budget has already included the purchase of 2 32 cubic yard side loader packers for a $186,000 annual lease over 3 years, and that also begins in FY16. We would look at probably distributing carts sometime in FY16, including the marketing of the overflow bags at the same time, and then potentially implement automated collection in FY17. We look forward to presenting this proposal. We acknowledge that this is the beginning of a dialogue that will include, hopefully, the Solid Waste Advisory Committee and the public over the future of solid waste collection in the town of Brookline. We firmly believe that automated collection will provide for efficient and cost-effective services by Department of Public Works staff, and that the use of 35-gallon carts will encourage the reduction of municipal solid waste and the maximization of our recycling volumes. So at that point, I can entertain any questions.
Selectman Heller, you can start.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. That was a very enlightening presentation, and I have some questions. I'm looking at this chart, first of all. There's a huge variation in the rate of recycling. And why does Dedham do it so well, and other communities don't nearly get there?
You know, that number popped out at me like a sore thumb when I saw that. Dedham at 59.3%. I'm not sure that the number is correct, to be honest with you, or the tonnages that they reported are correct. I don't know of anybody that's at 59% in terms of a recycling rate. I'm convinced that that number is not correct.
Well, there's another community there with 41%, that's Wenham.
Yeah, but if you look at Wenham, they have a very small
toter.
Yeah, they have a small toter, number one. Number two, they do curbside organic collection, which is food wastes. They're removing food waste from the waste stream separately. so that, and that's all a part of the recycling rate. But Wenham is, you're talking only about 1,300 households.
I see.
It's very small. So,
Well, that leads me to a follow-up question. I know in the past, Solid Waste Advisory Committee has talked about the idea of composting of, food waste, and I'm wondering where we are in that discussion and whether you see any possibility that we would get there, whether it's, and into that question is also the issue of if a household has a kitchen disposal, is it better to use that or to throw it in the garbage? What's the best way to go environmentally, I'm thinking especially?
as far as the organics, or food waste, there are no facilities currently that can handle the type of volume that you're talking about. There was a pilot program proposed to use the digesters at Deer Island at the MWRA wastewater treatment plant. Waste Management had proposed to use that, put food waste into the digesters. The problem is that the town of Winthrop will not allow the trucks to drive through their town, even though there was a minimal amount of trucks incorporated within the pilot program. So that left the only other avenue of getting there would be to barge it from Charlestown or Chelsea to Deer Island, which has some huge capital costs involved with it. You got to make sure you have a pier set up for the barge to receive the barge. You have to make sure that you have both pumping and piping infrastructure in place to be able to offload the barge and transport the materials to the anaerobic digesters. So there's some huge capital costs there. It's really not going anywhere right now. However, having said that, it's my opinion, and I'm sure that the Solid Waste Advisory Committee would share that opinion, that that the collection of food, separate collection of food waste is going to be coming down the road at some point. It's inevitable. The folks that manufacture these toters are already manufacturing, designing and manufacturing sealed containers for the collection of food waste for household use. So that, that's coming. When it's coming, I'm not sure. I know that we're not there yet. To the question of whether or not you ought to use a garbage disposal, you know that I'm a water and sewer guy at heart, and I will tell you that there is no garbage disposal in my house because I don't believe that, I believe they do more harm than good in sending all that stuff down into the sewer pipe. So I don't use them. I would never use them.
Selectman Daley.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. One, so if I go out and buy a trash compactor so I can fit more stuff in my little toter, doesn't that still mean our overall amount of, volume of trash is based on weight, right?
What it means is that your volume of trash is not going to change. I don't think everybody's going to go out and buy a trash compactor.
I'm a very good recycler, and I mentioned that to you when we talked about the single stream thing. I didn't think there was anything I could recycle that I wasn't already doing, but, and I have the compost bins out in my yard,
And I bet you
too.
fill that container every week, don't you? The recycling.
I do.
tote, Yeah. Yeah, and before you.
So, but
reuse it-
what I'm saying is, I don't feel that I can further reduce my trash.
Well, I think the data townwide, and it may be so in your case, and you may be a 50 or a 60%er, and that's great. But the data does show that townwide, we're not there, and, we're only 36%.
Okay. Well, my second question was, I had a comment from a town meeting member who lived in a condo building about, and apparently they keep their trash cans down in the basement of the building. They don't have outside space. It's one of these brick buildings that's attached to its neighbors. And he was very concerned about how they could manage with the toters.
Well, we had similar concerns when we implemented single stream. We heard from a lot of folks at public hearings that that they didn't really have a lot of space for the total, which is much larger than this one, by the way. And it would be a hardship for wheeling it up and down stairs and things of that nature. And we considered all those folks with those problems, and we did make available smaller toters, basically these size toters for people for recycling that felt that they either didn't have the room or were not able to handle it or maneuver it. And I will tell you that, since within 3 weeks of the implementation of single-stream recycling, the program has been pretty much complaint-free. And as I said earlier, we're just completing our 5th year of single-stream recycling. I would say to that person, what do you do with your trash now? Where do you put not your recycling, where do you put your household trash now? Do you put it in a bag and store the bag somewhere? Most people put it in a 32-gallon barrel, which is the standard household size now. Most people will put it in a barrel. The barrel is located somewhere. So I would say that, if you're doing that now and you have a place to store either a bag or a 32-gallon barrel, this is not taking up any more room than that. So, but I realize that, that each case is individual and we need to look at those.
I have one final question. I was just concerned about the large families, and either because they have a lot of kids or maybe because they have the parents living with them or something. And $2 a bag for somebody with a large family and maybe not a large income could be kind of pretty onerous. And I'm wondering if you've thought about any kind of exception program where maybe certain families could qualify to have 2 of these toters, or
pay more to have 2.
or something, yeah,
Or have, 1 per 5-person family size. And if someone has a family of 7 or 8.
yeah, could get 2.
To get 2.
Those are all ideas that are certainly possible. We have thought about some of them. I should tell you that Brookline currently has a $200 per household per year trash fee, refuse fee. And basically, that $200 would remain unchanged, at least for the time being, and that would buy you the 1 toter plus all your recycling going forward. The overflow bags are what the industry standard is for you dealing with overflow trash. The bags were priced based on what we think is a reasonable cost. We have talked about, as an incentive, when we distribute these toters, to also give each household a roll of bags free right at the beginning. What we're trying to encourage here is for folks to reduce the amount of stuff they throw away. And I realize that each family, depending on the size of the family, throws away different volumes of stuff. But overall, generally, we're trying to encourage the overall reduction of trash. And I think the only way to get into this is to actually get into it and deal with those cases as we go forward. And it may well be that down the road, we may want to make an additional total available at an additional cost, something priced maybe along the lines of how much trash it holds and how much it's going to cost us additionally to dispose of that trash over a year or so. So those are all ideas that we have not discounted, we have not eliminated. I think a lot of that information will be vetted during the public hearing process. And I think as we implement if we implement the program going forward, that a lot of those issues can be dealt with.
Selectman Green.
Yeah. I actually had a couple questions that Selectwoman Nancy Daly asked. But I'm surprised at how large that is. I mean, that would fit, our trash and my family, and we'd have room to rent out space. But there is one issue that someone in my precinct, I don't have a precinct anymore, but in my neighborhood asked me, and that is for the 3-unit buildings, similar to what Selectman Daley was referring to, that don't have access to the street except through alleys, and there are a lot in Precinct 7 like that. During the wintertime, they're basically going to be stuck with their trash and garbage in their house. Now, you say you can put that in your house, but I don't think people are going to want to put a bin like that in their kitchen or...
Well, where do they put their trash now? They put it out in the alley, right?
I mean, what we do is we don't generate a huge amount of trash, but we keep it in a bin that is clean in our kitchen. I mean, we wouldn't want to put that in the kitchen.
No, but you should certainly keep that outdoors, and as you generate a bag of trash, come down and put it in it.
No, the question is, in the wintertime, for example, this winter when the snow was fairly extensive, your ability to get that from the back into the front is going to be limited.
Yeah, but we still picked up in the back this winter. We picked up, we collect in the alleys as a matter of standard practice. We allow folks that have alleys behind their property, instead of putting the trash out in the public way, to put the trash out in the alleyway.
Do we have to
And we actually run the truck out through the alley.
Do we have to call you and say that we want that?
Oh, no. No, I mean, that's what we do.
You don't do that for recycling, though?
Yes, we do.
Didn't do it in our building.
Do you have an alleyway behind you?
There's not an alleyway, but there's a big parking area.
Well, if you're on a public way, we have a lot of alleyways in town, or private ways, that people are allowed to put their trash out at the back. Most of them do put it out in the back, and we run the trucks through that alleyway, as long as it's passable, that we do run the trucks through and we collect the trash.
And you're able to do that during this year's winter?
Yes, we did. Yes.
A couple of things hit me. Unlike Selectman Green, I looked at that and said, gosh, that's awful small. I currently use a 48-gallon toter. Is a 48-gallon toter, which is perhaps a middle ground, a possibility?
You can decide to use any size toter that you want, basically. We're saying that in order to accomplish the goals of this program, which is to reduce the amount of solid waste that we generate and increase the amount of recycling that we generate, that the 35-gallon container is the way to go to be progressive. There are incentives to do that, and as I showed you before, I mentioned in my talk, the difference between the 35 and the 64 is about a $300,000 difference, because you're taking the state grant out of the picture. You know, Mass DEP offered the grant up for a reason. It's an incentive to get folks to reduce the amount of trash they generate. But you can decide on any size container that you want. I mean, not sure that if you go with a larger container, that you're going to accomplish the goals that we're setting out with this program. And it may well be, yeah, okay, we can pick it up automated and we can see some efficiencies in the automated collection, but we're really not going to see a reduction in the amount of solid waste that we're generating.
Now, you're citing the average household of 26.5 pounds, which on average would fit into that toter. But we don't have any statistics, and I don't know how you would gather it other than weighing it at this curb, which is impractical, on the dispersion. So you have an average, and then you have occurrences around the average. So you could have a lot of, households like Selectman Green, who are generating very small, kind of bringing us down, and then you have a lot of households, on the other end, eight kids or whatever, who are taking it up. And it would be very interesting to know, though I suspect it's unknowable, like what is the, to use the statistician's term, standard deviation around the mean, which would help make a decision and tell us, how good that using that mean as a decision point really is, because if the dispersion around the mean is very broad, using the mean as the decision point becomes a little less valid, because then we have a lot of families who would be hitting that, putting bags out there. Not only are we creating, we don't really want them to put bags, because our collection costs are going to go up, I presume, because you can't really use the automated collection. I'm rambling a bit, but...
Well, let me talk about the collect. Yeah, we want to see the least number of bags put out there as possible. Automated collection becomes the most efficient when it's purely the toters, unless you're going to get some enterprising truck driver and you're going to put the bag on top of the toter, and he's going to try to balance it on the barrel as it's going up. I've seen them do it, but probably wouldn't encourage it. As far as the statistics are concerned, I don't know what the standard deviation is. All I know is that if you crank the numbers, it says that the average dwelling unit in Brookline is putting out 26 pounds of trash. Now, 26 pounds of trash only gets you a little over half full on that toter, and that's if you don't stand up and jump on it to really compact it like Selectman Daley's going to do. So, you know, if the average is going to take care of 50% of the households, it may be that this toter is going to take care of 60% of the households or 65% of the households. There's always going to be households that aren't going to be able to get their trash into that. But remember the basic premise going forward. We're trying to encourage a change in behavior with the 35-gallon toter, and that's really what it's all about. So I'm hoping that the 26.5-pound figure goes down once people start getting comfortable with the use of that toter.
Selectman Green.
Yeah. I'm all for encouraging changes in behavior, but as we sort of pound people into making those changes, I hope that we have some options to sort of mitigate the harm that may cause to some families. I mean, if 26.5 is the average, that means a whole lot of families are way above the average.
I agree.
So, I mean, yeah, we have to change behavior, but let's make sure that we're thinking about ways in which, you know, we can, you know, mitigate the impact on people. If for no other reason than, you know, it's just a nice thing to do.
Selectman Franco.
I agree with you totally.
I think we should provide some clarification for people who maybe are joining the conversation later, just tuning in on television, that we're talking about people who are in municipal trash service, and this isn't for everybody. I know a lot of multifamily dwellings have private trash service, and we are not affecting their trash collection in any way. So rest assured, this is only if you have the town come and collect your solid waste.
Which is 54% of the total.
Selectman,
I have one question as well, to pick up on a theme that Selectman Green brought up about the impact of the winter on potential collection. I am concerned, but maybe less so than, concerned about collection and storage, but maybe less so than I am about the impact of the winter on the use of the side loaders. I know that it's common behavior, perhaps not condoned behavior, to sort of, in the winter, sort of jimmy your trash can up on top of a snowbank, and I'm not sure that would work when you've got a sort of side collection mechanism going. Do we anticipate difficulty in utilizing the side collector method in the winter? We anticipating problems with parked vehicles, or are there any potential liabilities or unknown unknowns there?
You have to leave your thing on the snowbank, you know, after they plowed it all up there.
But we also have experience with the recycling.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to say. You know, we've been collecting recycling with toters and side loaders for 5 years now, and while we thought we were going to have all those problems at the beginning of this program, correct me if I'm wrong, but we haven't experienced any of those problems. We've been still able to pick up all the recycling all the time, including the winter time. Yes, sometimes it's perched on a snowbank, and the truck driver has to get a little bit original in how he's going to grab it, but it gets done, and it's done. So I'm not expecting those types of issues really with collection, because our track record has shown that it's not really an issue.
It's a great answer, so.
Selectman Heller, sorry.
I have a couple more questions. One, I'm curious, I understood that we had always incinerated our trash. And then recently someone told me that we've gone to a landfill system. Must have happened when I wasn't here, before I was on the board. But can you explain the reason for that and whether that's environmentally better than incineration?
We awarded a new contract for disposal last fiscal year, or last July, to a company that owns and operates a DEP-certified landfill that's very environmentally progressive, I'll say, and it's located in Southbridge. Prior to that, our rubbish at certain times went to a waste-to-energy plant, an incinerator. There were a lot of times when our rubbish went to a landfill. To my knowledge, we have never included in our contract specifications the statement that our solid waste had to go to a particular type of facility. To my knowledge, that's never been in there. Generally, once the rubbish is dumped at the transfer station, the hauler and the disposer then assumes ownership of that trash, and he's basically free to do whatever he wants with it. Although we do encourage very, very strongly that it go to a environmentally certified Mass DEP regulated facility. The landfill out in Southbridge is such a facility. In fact, they do have a waste-to-energy plant located there that generates electricity for housing developments in the area, and it's generated from the gas generated in the landfill. In fact, DEP has just increased their permit capacity, and they don't generally do that if it's not a well-run facility. So we never had the final say as to where it went. Many times it went to a landfill, many times it didn't. Sometimes it was incinerated, sometimes it went to different waste-to-energy plants. That's really up to the contractor how he disposes of it.
To switch gears a minute, I would imagine that one of the things that you would want to be doing when we switch to this is to provide families with a lot of education about what could be recycled. So, because that changes from time to time, and sometimes I think it's people don't know what things that they could be recycling and what they need to put into the trash. And I'm wondering what kinds of plans you would have in place to encourage recycling by letting people know specifically what it is they can recycle.
I have two answers to that. We go to great lengths right now to publish a guidebook annually that has a lot of space devoted to recycling and solid waste. And every time the regulations change, we're very careful to make sure that we put that into our guidebook. That's mailed out to every household in the town. I'm sure that you've seen it. And that's generally done in the fall. Having said that, however, before we implement this program, we have talked about doing some real serious public education. And we're not quite sure what forum we're going to use to do that. But I agree with you that there has to be a lot of public education with this going forward. There has to be a lot of information given to people so that they can make the best decisions that they can make and make this program a success at the same time. So that's going to be certainly part of it.
Selectman Franco?
I want to start by congratulating you. We've tossed a bunch of questions at you, and I think you've done a pretty good job of anticipating them and answering them. So I applaud you and your staff for that, and look forward to the public discussions, the public forums we're going to have on this. I do have one last question for you, and it's sort of about what other communities who have adopted either a pure pay-as-you-throw or a modified pay-as-you-throw system do around certain times of year when there may be a higher volume of trash generated. So I'm thinking around holidays like Thanksgiving or
Move in, move out day.
Is there some path that's been followed in other communities, or have you given any thought to how to address that? Those sort of 1 or 2 times a year when there may be an inclination to generate more trash than fits in this particular toter?
We have thought about it, we have talked about it. I'm not sure that we've reached any kind of resolution about it yet. You know, the move-ins and move-outs are a problem that we deal with every single year. Not quite sure just how we're going to handle that, because it certainly won't fit this model. There's going to have to be some other mechanism to deal with that. As far as, you know, normal periods of the year when the trash volume increases for everybody, yeah, that's a problem. We're really not sure. We're not sure the best way to handle it. I am confident, though, that if you roll out these containers early enough in the year and you give people time to have some experience with them, get used to them, maybe change their behavior a little bit, and get comfortable with the use of them, I don't think that, you know, when you get to the holidays, for instance, when the trash increases, that will be as big of a problem as we think it might be now. So this is all going to be stuff that's going to be vetted out in the future. I'm really not sure.
Okay, so I think we're going to be hearing a lot more about it. I think this is a taste of the kinds of questions you're going to get from the public. So it sounds like you're prepared to answer them. And
Actually, Neil, can I ask one addition? Sorry. Commissioner, have you given any thought, I mean, this move in and move out, and, you know, I live in North Brookline, and there's always an issue with the amount of trash around the time that the youngsters are moving in and out and whatever. And one of the concerns in the past was, well, would people not go to the store and buy a bag for $2, but would they just throw it on somebody else's lawn? So the question is there going to be any kind of process where, you know, if someone does throw a bag on somebody's lawn and you come along, are you going to be fining people, or you're not going to be picking it up if it doesn't have the Town of Brookline seal on it? And what's that process? Are you going to allow people to appeal if you institute a fine? I'm just wondering where you're going with this.
We're going to be very proactive with enforcement. You know, not at the very beginning. You got to give people a little bit of a chance to get used to it. But yeah, we're going to be really stepping up the enforcement. You know, we have spent countless hours going through bags of trash looking for names and addresses to chase things down. You know, the police aren't the only ones that have investigative services. We all have them too. But we're going to be very proactive with that, and there will be fines issue. We have the ability to fine now and to ticket now, and we will be doing that going forward, because we cannot, absolutely not tolerate any type of illegal disposal, and we have to nip it right in the bud. So we're going to have to develop some protocols on you know, the whole appeal process, things of that nature, but that'll come as well.
okay, so we have one last piece of business to deal with, and that's an internal transfer of funds within the department. So why don't you tell us about that, Commissioner?
I've kind of highlighted it before, but this is a request for appropriation transfer in the amount of $221,000, and this is within the FY 2015 Sanitation Division budget. The money right now is in the contractual services budget. The line item is called solid waste disposal, and that's where the money is that we saved through the decrease in the solid waste tonnage contract, as well as the taking back in-house the collection of metals. The total savings is $287,000 in that line item. What we're asking you to do is to transfer $221,000 of that out of the contractual services line item and move it into capital equipment, which is generally where large purchases are made and where leasing payments are made. Basically, this is going to be for the purchase of about 5,500 solid waste carts at a cost of a little under $200,000, and the lease purchase of about 2,300 carts and an annual lease cost of $21,000. And as I said in my presentation, the remaining 5,400 carts would be funded, but with that pending Mass DEP grant.
Does this imply we make a decision on the size tonight?
No.
Yeah, I don't think it's appropriate for us to vote on this now,
We need
before
to-
they've had the public hearings.
No, but we're not making a decision about the size. We just need to be able to carry over some funds into the next fiscal year.
Yeah, that's what this is about. The funds
Okay, I want
reside,
the record to specifically reflect that we are not voting on the size of the toters or at this time, prior to you having public hearings on this issue?
That was our intent.
Okay.
And is,
But the minutes will show that. or-
yeah, we will make sure the minutes show. If it doesn't, you'll send in a correction. Just a technical note, the account is called recycling toters, is that a?
it's just a line item that it goes.
Okay, so it doesn't matter, okay. So any comments, questions? Then I'll move.
I do have one question. I noticed under your memo, page 11-3, funding and timelines, you talk about the purchase of almost 5,500 carts using $200,000 in surplus fiscal year 2015 disposal funds. So what you're saying is that you'll carry the money over. These really wouldn't be purchased until fiscal year 2016. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this is so we can use this fiscal year's
Right,
money.
but I think that this line is a little bit, it depends on how you read it.
Let me just clarify.
You will be coming back to us
If-
after you have had some public hearings for a vote on some of these matters.
We
will
won't
be
make
having
this
a public
purchase,
hearing.
it's the board has made a decision,
Okay.
whatever that may be. The problem is that the funds reside in the 15 budget. If we don't write a purchase order today and then carry that purchase order forward, then those funds will be not available to us in the future.
Correct.
And there are no funds available for this program in the 16 budget. So this is an accounting mechanism.
Yeah, and if we let it lapse, the funds wouldn't be available until 17.
Well, They'd go into free
cash.
To be
Yeah.
certified and
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I will move approval of the following transfer within the Public Works Sanitation Division appropriation from $221,000 from solid waste disposal to recycling toters. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green? Aye. And chair votes aye.
So I guess you didn't put all the extra money into that snow budget item.
Oh, my,
You were holding back on us.
what, the beast?
No.
The shortfall.
When the shortfall of the snow budget, you were putting all your surpluses toward
I
that.
gave you everything else.
Okay, well, that concludes our business tonight, so good night. See you all next week.
Great, thanks.